Hello, everyone. Welcome to another episode of The Creative Minds. In fact, it's the last episode of season 2 that we have today. And for that, we have a treat for you. We're going to talk about creativity and what else for the creative minds, after all, to talk about. And creative with me is Stuart. Hello, Stuart.
Hi, Flavio. It's great to be here, back again, and it's a great topic, this episode as well. I think a lot of us struggle sometimes to think outside the box. You know, we've got so much going on in our lives. You're busy moving forward, just trying to get things done, and then trying to think of some different way to tackle a problem that's exceptionally challenging. And we've got some good points we've available to discuss and figure out how you can do that.
Absolutely. And today we have our special guest, Susanne Trautmann, with us. The second time we have her on board. We had her on the first season. We have her on the second season. Who knows? Maybe future season 3. Susie, welcome to the broadcast.
Yes, hi, and thanks for having me again. Hi, Stuart. Hi, Flavio. Without creativity, I could not imagine surviving a single day. Just yesterday, and I shared this on LinkedIn recently, I read that 75% of all marketers really feel restricted in their creativity by higher management. And I think we have to talk today about how we can change that, because creativity matters. So I look forward to a fun and inspiring conversation with the two of you.
And, yeah, absolutely. And so let's be creative. I mean, there was an interesting article, in fact, that you did share with us and through social media on LinkedIn, Susie, which was the triple play of creativity, purpose, and analytics. And I think this is very much interesting. I mean, everything we have around us, in most of the cases, is square or rectangle, like the screen probably that you're using right now to watch this program, like your smartphone, like your TV, like your windows, unless you're in a plane. And so we keep saying, think out of the box. And I'm saying, my first reaction when somebody says, think out of the box, is to saying, why is there a box? Really? Is there a box? So, Susie, you have the marketing canvas, which is that methodology. We already talked about that on the previous episode on season 1. And how do you see having a methodology, in fact, driving creativity? Because it's a bunch of boxes, right?
Yeah, that's true. And I also don't like thinking in boxes. I also don't like putting people in boxes. So I think we absolutely have to stop that. But when we want to look at something with a 360-degree perspective, and I think we can only be creative if we can see the big picture, boxes can help. So in preparation for this episode, I looked at my canvas with like fresh eyes, and I realized that this is really a framework that drives creativity because canvas models per se can do that. They are by nature brain-friendly visual thinking tools. I'm not sure if anyone of you or the audience has worked with a canvas model yet, but the funny thing is that our whole lives, it starts like very early on in school. We get trained to consume information in a linear way. We now talk with each other, and you hear me while I'm speaking. Later on, you may read an article or you watch a video. Every piece of information is consumed piece by piece, but not holistically all at once. So for our brains, this means this is super complicated to process because this is boring. Our brain could do so much more because our thoughts, they do not run in a static line, but they jump back and forth and they combine all the information we perceive with each other. This is why we love mind maps and connecting things, and canvas models, they just do the same thing. They help us to think out of the box, because when we see boxes next to each other, we overstep the lines. For the very first time, we can perceive the information in a new way, not linear, but everything on one page, and then magic happens. At least it does for me, and I hope for everyone who tries a canvas, like the marketing canvas. There will be higher level, you will recognize higher level informations between these boxes, and you get to new and disruptive ideas. They come to the surface just naturally, and you can refine and test and scale them. that is the one thing that
Susie, hang on.
the marketing
maybe
canvas.
before you move on, maybe we can quickly show the marketing canvas where you talk about it. Here we go. So now you can go on and people can see what we're talking about.
So that's the marketing canvas. It is actually a go-to-market canvas, but you can use it whenever you want to kick off a new idea and you just don't know where to start. Then you can move through these 9 boxes. They are part of a horizontal framework, and you capture your key information. It looks so simple, but at the same time, this is what makes it powerful, because complicated tools you will never try, but a simple tool you may test. And the marketing canvas, ideally, don't fill it out on your own, but with the team. So a team of experts that is working together with you on a project. And that is, I think, the other key ingredients for creative work, working with other people who contribute ideas. Because I think a diversity of people will lead to a diversity of ideas. This is much, much better than just working as a single person. When you learn to look beyond your personal horizon and understand perspectives of team members, you can start to create a bigger picture for the very first time. This improves communication, removes siloed information. And I think this is what many marketers today struggle with. Sales, marketing, engineering teams very often work separately from each other, don't talk enough, and the marketing canvas brings them together. So would you also say that communication and working with other people fuels creativity from your experience, Stuart and Flavio?
Absolutely, without a doubt. I think at least in the past few months that I've been working with various clients, I've just been one part of a distributed team. When we're trying to develop ideas, there's some of the customers that I have in my portfolio are working on some topics, especially around timing. For example, timing is a software issue that comes up a lot. And if I say time, the first thing you probably thought of is a clock or a stopwatch or something along those lines. But that rapidly becomes very, very boring as an idea for doing any type of communication, visual communication. So you need to think beyond the clock, beyond the stopwatch, despite the fact that time is what it's about. And also time isn't something you can actually take a photograph of, is it either? It's I don't really know how you best describe it, but time passes. We all know what the time is. We know we only have a limited amount of time, but nobody's actually taken a photo of time itself. So you always have to represent it through other means. And in the meetings that we have to sort of move forward and progress with the marketing campaigns and come up with illustrations to go with textual explanations about the products and what's possible, it really requires input from lots of different people. And every time we come into a meeting, there's 4 or 5 of us bouncing ideas around. And after a discussion, something comes out that works, something that comes out it gives you that opportunity to bring people together from lots of different backgrounds with all their different experiences, and draw upon those skills that they have. One of the things I found really challenging in some of these marketing activities, though, is how much we rely upon what our stomach tells us about the market, or what someone's as almost per intuition tells us. See that there's sort of a limited interest in sort of running surveys or actually get quantitative data from the customer base as to what they want or what they're looking for.
I think it's always a question how you structure a survey and how attractive it is to fill it in. Like, what do I get back when I fill this in? Can I help you on your journey? Is your input crucial for you to succeed? And I love your project, or I like being customer of you and help you. I think it's always about building relationships, meaningful relationships. And when you ask for something and you explain that it's for a bigger purpose because someone can help you to make a product or a service better, chances are much higher that you get a good feedback, and then that people will set aside some time to talk with you. And building meaningful personal connections will always lead to better feedback. So I also think it really makes sense to just call people, engage with them in like a short meeting, and usually they will start talking about so much that you couldn't explore in percent feedback. But if you just, for example, start with a certain product and you don't know who your audience is, so you absolutely have to talk to people who your gut tells you could be a good audience, and just ask them what their pain points are and if your product could help them to make their lives better. So, yeah.
In fact, this is interesting because it kind of plays into the triple play that we talked at the beginning of the episode, the creativity, the purpose, and the analytics. From creativity being there, so you can think out of the box. You can think about what are new ways to do it, but the purpose is there. That is not, by the way, making money. A purpose might be a goal like making the planet better, or improving quality of life, or I mean, it can be. There are many causes, I would say, out there right now that are running really hot. That you can align your company, your product, your services with to make really an impact, and those help to carry, I would say, the voice at the same time, as long as you have a meaningful alignment with those. And then you have that analytics, which is what you both have talked about just now, is have a real understanding about what is it your audience has received, what is it that they have accepted, and what is it that they want else, so you can continue to build on that wow experience, on making sure you're connected to the people out there. Otherwise, your the creativity would go out of bounds, which is really cool. The purpose might be there, but you might have a total disconnect with your audience. And so the message you do is not received any longer. And I think this is one of the key elements where people struggle right now, is to find the time to be creative. I mean, creativity doesn't run on a meeting 8 to 9 on Monday mornings. Creativity runs when you wake up. For some, it's in the middle of the night. For some, it's while they bike or have a bath or shower, whatever. I mean, everybody has their own time of creativity, which I would say, honestly, in most of the cases, it is not when you're in the office in a meeting talking about creativity. And then comes the purpose about how you align it, and then making sure you're putting it in the right perspective with the right message into the right audience, right?
Yeah, many companies in the B2B background or playground, I don't know what your observations are, they consider purpose as a distraction. I think this is sometimes really sad because they don't really know what that brand stands for. They are always focusing on the next transaction, closing the deal, rather than building a relationship. And I think building a relationship on mutual values is so necessary, because if you don't know your purpose, then your customer probably also don't know what your brand stands for. How will you grow in this foundation, with this foundation? So without having this North Star in the marketing canvas, now that I looked at it with like these fresh eyes, I realized that there's one box, I call it the unfair advantage, that serves as a great foundation to find the North Star, because I look for the things, the expertise and the experience that no one can copy, that helps you to serve your customer better than anyone else. And I believe that once we have identified that, the next step, like building the purpose from the why does my customer matter, why does helping my customer matter to me, is so easy. And when you find your why as an organization, it allows your employees and your stakeholders to connect their purpose to yours. So it is not as complicated as it is. And I think it's a must-have for every organization to define their purpose in order to be creative and to lead ideas into any meaningful direction towards a common goal, ideally, and then test it or measure your success with the right KPIs. By the way, are you using KPIs in your day-to-day work? What do you think are KPIs that are undervalued right now?
I think KPIs are required. You need to have some sort of a frame of reference about what are your targets and how far you are from achieving them. So KPIs are required. It's like, for example, right now on the broadcast we have, we love to have live people with us. We have a couple of people, in fact, live with us. So for you out there that is currently watching on live, if you want to ask questions during the broadcast on LinkedIn or on Vimeo, just feel free to do so. But the KPI, for example, for a broadcast is how many viewers you have, either live or after the fact, which is pure analytics. But if you don't have those KPIs, how do you measure success? And that is the point. And what is your definition of success before you even measure it? And KPIs are there for that. Stuart, anything you want to add to that?
Yeah, I think that's you have to sit down and decide what your KPIs are, and I think as I was saying before with my previous question about maybe relying far too much on intuition. Some of the work that I'm involved in, I do wonder if we're not making use of the available data to the degree that it's and really using it to its full potential. Even smaller organizations have Google Analytics, for example, which actually tells you how many people are coming onto your website, how long they're spending there. And if you're not actually taking some time to look at that data, or even on LinkedIn, how many people have responded or reviewed your organic posts, you're not really getting a feeling of what the market out there generally is interested in. So I think if you don't have KPIs in place, if you're not looking at some sort of feedback in analytics that's available to you, you're really missing out on opportunity to tie things down. And it sort of comes back again to this question of purpose and having a purpose. I think there's a huge risk if you haven't set up a purpose. I think especially if you look at the next generation of employees that come into the market now, I think there's an expectation that businesses have a purpose. That's the first thing. And if you don't have one, you're going to lose their interest. You're going to they're going to not feel like they participate in something, and that's something I think that they want. So I think that's the first thing. I think the second important thing is if you don't sit down and figure out what your purpose is, you leave it up to everybody else to define what your purpose is. And as a result of that, if anything changes, if your business model changes, if your direction changes, if your management changes and does something different, the people who are very much purpose-led will suddenly lose interest in your business, and that's a big risk to have. And I think that's why it's so important to, as you said, Susie, to nail down that unique advantage that you have and actually properly describe a purpose. I mean, going back to the initial report we were looking at from McKinsey, where they said you have this triple play. I mean, what they were saying was by having creativity, by having purpose and analytics together, those three things, businesses that really had a handle on those three things were shown to do significantly better than businesses that didn't have all of those three things in place. Yeah, you can do one of them or two of them out of the three, but really having all three together was actually making a significant difference. And so it's something I think people really need to take seriously.
Yeah, and there is none of these three items is more relevant than the other. I really liked that part as well. So analytics is not more powerful than a purpose, or creativity is not more powerful than analytics, and the other way around. And in the beginning of or in the intro, I said that I read about the 75% of marketers who feel like restricted in their creativity because their management might be maybe rather looking for like in the box solutions where they feel safe and don't have to leave the beaten path. And I think that analytics leaves such a great foundation for viable data that allows you to feel safe, because of course we want to scale what works best. So I think that when you realize that analytics create the playground to creative thinking, because then you can start to dream big, because you have a great foundation for iterative test and learn approaches. You can easier predict the outcome of what you know today. And this takes so much pressure away from marketers. And based on that foundation, I think we can have much better argumentation to test new ideas that help us to get out of the box and unleash creativity with some more brave ideas than we usually would have applied. And actually, this is the last box in the marketing canvas. I called it the goal. I think that it is so important that you need to align your team around one goal. This is, of course, connected to the purpose, but also connected to the analytics part, because in this box, I ask the team to set up milestones that help them to realize, are we on the right path? And also to define KPIs that help to measure if each milestone can be checked off. So this makes somehow the marketing canvas a triple growth instrument, which I think is fantastic.
The interesting part, Susie, is when we want to think out of the box. The question we have, in fact, on the screen right now is like, but how, right? So we are 2/3 into the program. And what I'd like to make sure is that we give our audience some ideas about how to be creative, and at least, and I think everybody has their own experience. Creativity is something that I believe everybody has creativity somewhere. It's just that so many people might have been trained of not using it, or might have forgotten about how to use it, or might think it's not appropriate to be creative. And I think here there's something that is very important. Creativity comes in all shapes or form. For people, it's art. For some others, it's photography or painting, or it could be singing, playing an instrument, gardening, you name it. I mean, there are tons of ways of being creative. But the big question is really, how do you take that creativity and apply it to what you do into marketing or into the business? And I'll let you speak both about your element of creativity, what it might be. I know that for my side, it's photography. I'm creative around photography, anything that is around the image, about how to position the information around. And in fact, there's a new product that is coming out of Stiffan Consulting called Ataraxis Photo, which is about how to bring teams together to work and be creative using photography. And it can be very well by using just a smartphone or a camera and move on. And that creativity drives it in a way that then you can look at the images, at what you create, and it can answer questions, right? Sometimes by seeing something, you go and saying, hang on, that triggers my curiosity, which is part of creativity, and then goes on. And so, Susanne, how are you creative? What is your creativity?
I realized I just can't be creative when I'm in a relaxed mood. So I can't be creative under pressure. And I'm just, as you, a visual creative person. So I'm a big fan of simplifying complexity and finding a way to, create a structure that helps other people to understand a complex technology or a complex service and the value they get out of it. So digging for this kind of goal makes me really happy, because I think this is the highest, the most difficult task in marketing, simplifying complexity and making sure that people understand like the very core of it, and so that you can become a part of their story, because they understand what you're doing and they want to connect it to what they're doing. And this is not possible if it's too complicated. At the same time, this is somehow what a lot of B2B companies love to enjoy, publishing highly complex graphics and long sentences. And I think this again is sad, because if you express yourself in a very complicated way, it does not help your audience. So we have to really get over that. Simplification inspires creativity of other people. That's what I believe. What about you, Stuart?
Yeah, I think I'm personally my most creative when I have that opportunity to work in a team and bounce ideas off. I definitely don't have my best ideas alone. There's things that I have participated in creating, which I could never have created on my own. There's absolutely no way. And we look at the final result, and to know you've contributed to it is absolutely brilliant. But there's just no way that was going to happen alone. And I think that is that like the key. That I think firstly you need. For me, at least, you need people to bounce ideas off. You need that space and that time to be able to do it. And I think that aspect of time is critical as well. I think when you've got like a marketing organization, and yeah, you've got your analytics and you've got your purpose and you've got your other bits and pieces. But if you're just sort of churning your way through all of those things, you're only going to continue to achieve things inside that space where you're currently operating. And in order to jump a bit or to do something different or maneuver in a different way, I think you need to have that. You need to be allowed to undertake things that you've never done before. So I think in marketing organizations, if you can, it's a bit like when you look at companies like Google and some other big tech companies, they sort of like Friday, you can do whatever you want almost. You can sit down and work on secret projects or your own ideas, whatever it might be, because they know that people's dedication to things that interest them can actually deliver completely new ideas, new services, new products. And I think the same applies to marketing teams. I think you should have a part of your budget, maybe like a few percent of your budget available for going out there and trying things. I also look at if you look at platforms like Netflix as well, there's a broad spectrum of material there, and it doesn't interest me all of it, but there is a part of it that interests me, and I would say that I'm not your standard Netflix user. I have particular sort of niche interests and types and styles of material that I like. So I probably watch things that don't have the highest viewing numbers. I'm definitely not one who takes whatever's offered as the top 10 this week in Netflix. And I think the same applies also to marketing. Yeah, you spend a lot of time going out to all those people that you know 90% align with what it is you do, but then there's also the people who are sort of 60% and 40%, and if you can win them over, you actually might find that they're stickier customers than if you were to not to address them at all. But you need to go out of your way to be better at acquiring them, maybe by using different channels, different approaches. And if you don't have that room to go and try some stuff, you're never going to find out, are you?
Mm-hmm.
Well, we're coming at the end of the program already, which is time flies when you have fun and hopefully be creative. So maybe very briefly, Susie, creativity from your side. I mean, you obviously are very creative. We see that. I mean, but at the same time, everything has to be with a methodology, so you know what to do with the creativity. Any last words on thinking out of the box?
Always stay curious and never stop learning. I think the curiosity to learn is the key to creativity, and every marketer should have it, because in marketing everything will constantly change, which I think is super exciting, which is why I am in marketing. Everything else would be so boring, and if you love to learn, then creativity will happen as a side effect, I think.
And Stuart, on your side, creativity, you're a writer, you do a lot of that, also taking content out there and recreating it briefly. Yeah. Any last words about out-of-the-box creativity?
I think the important thing is not to try and create something that's completely and utterly new. I don't think it's sort of possible. I think all the ideas have been done, all the angles have been looked at over the decades and centuries. I think the important thing is to, as Susie said, be curious, see what's out there, and stand on the shoulders of giants. Take what's been done before and try to do something that you consider to be new with it, or something that's not been done inside your field or your branch or your sphere of influence. And I think that will look creative, it will look different, it will look new and fresh, and that's how those sort of things come about.
That's brilliant. I like that.
Thank you. And most importantly, creativity happens in many cases as a person being, like Susie said, relaxed or into a different state of mind, but also happens as teamwork. And if a team is creative, bringing complementary creative pieces into the enterprise, it makes that big difference about being able to move forward in a creative way. Creativity to me is like art. There's nothing bad in art. It's not because you not understand it that is bad. And creativity, one has to be super tolerant to accept tolerant creativity, but at the same time also try to see it from the other side of the fence and understand a little more about what made somebody being creative that way. Because there's always a good reason behind that. Creativity is positive. Creativity is all about the future. So keep that in mind. I want to thank Susie for joining us today into this last episode of the season. Thank you so much.
You're welcome. Thanks for having me. I really enjoyed it.
And Stuart, always a pleasure. We have next season coming up, which will have a different format. So we might see Stuart from time to time there, maybe not. We'll see what happens. Stuart, thank you for being there.
Thanks also for the opportunity to participate in the Creative Minds. Like we were chatting earlier, it's been a fantastic chance to meet lots of different people, and that's helped my creativity enormously, obviously, by learning about how other people are tackling challenges, and tweaked my curiosity buds as well.
And I also want to thank Mick Klausner, who's behind the buttons right now, making sure that everything runs well so you have the best possible creative minds on your screen. And finally, I want to thank you as the audience to have followed us for the last 17 episodes. And don't hang up just yet. Just follow us on Apple Podcasts, on also Google Podcasts, and there will be more coming up with the Creative Minds. So I can't wait to show you more about being creative with more guests. Just enjoy the summer and talk to you soon. Have a good one. Bye now.
Bye.